Hello and welcome back to Democracy, everybody. Welcome back to Helldivers 2, where today we're going to be going over all the grenades and ranking them from the worst to the best. There are some that are really good, there's some that are pretty bad, and then there's also some that are just kind of in the middle. Actually, a lot of these are in the middle. Generally speaking, like the top two here are definitely the standouts, and also like the bottom one here is definitely the standout. Everything else in the middle is generally pretty decent though for one job or another. Anyway, let's hop right into this, starting out with our D tier grenades, and our one and only D tier grenade goes to the K2 throwing knife. This one isn't a grenade, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, but it's also not very good. This comes with a Viper Commandos war bond, and this is throwing knives, which inherently throwing knives are really cool, and they also don't necessarily have that bad of damage. They do 250 damage on throw, they have medium armor pen, and you do get 20 of these things. You can have 22 if you have the engineering kit, which is kind of cool, I guess. You probably wouldn't want to take that just to get 2 more throwing knives. Throwing knives are very fun, but they're not very effective because they can only really hurt medium and small enemies. You could hurt bigger enemies if you hit them in the weak spot, but you're going to have to hit them multiple times for that. You also can't get your throwing knives back whenever you run over a body that you threw throwing knives at. If you miss, this kind of sucks, and you can't really throw these at long range. Like, you can kind of try, but they drop pretty fast. It's really hard to tell where you're actually going to be kind of tossing these. So they're mostly made as sort of a close range throwing weapon, but at that point it's not really that good because like I could just swap to melee if I want to do that and actually have like a sword or a spear or something. That's going to be better than necessarily like just trying to rely on the throwing knives to kill stuff. So throwing knives are by far our worst knife here, and generally don't really have a place outside of you just want to have fun, or you're going with like random loadouts, in which case then you get the knives and you just kind of got to deal with it. So moving up to the C tier, we have 2 C tiers here because both these ones are kind of awkward, but at least have some use, a lot more use than like the knives do. So the first one up is the G109 Urchin. This one is really weird. This one is kind of like a combination between the thermites, how you can stick these 2 enemies, and it also has like the flashbang effect where it can stun them. It's pretty much just a worse version of both of these, I find, though. Since the flashbang goes off a lot faster, you can just toss it into the middle of the group. With the Urchin, if you try to toss it into the middle of the group, it doesn't have the same AoE that the flashbang has, at least it doesn't seem to be that way. And sticking this to like one large enemy to stun lock them is kind of a thing you can do, but if you're doing that to like a Hulk or a Charger, the regular flashbang can do that too. So the Urchin doesn't actually do any damage either, even though it says it has anti-tank armor on it too. I'm imagining that's just the stun effect itself though, so that it can actually affect certain enemies. I think. I don't know. That's kind of a weird thing to have on it. This also can't close up bug tunnels or bot factories, which makes it not really that great of an option. Like, yeah, it's okay if I want to throw it onto like flesh mobs, Chargers, or Hulks, but I could do the same thing with the flashbang. That comes up a lot faster. I can throw it out quicker. And I find that it's more immediate, and it usually hits more things in the area too, so it's better for the AoE. So overall, it's just a very awkward grenade in my opinion. Also coming in at the C tier, we have the G7 Pineapple Grenade. This is the brand new grenade, the Cluster Bomb Grenade, or the Grenade. And sadly, it's not really all that great. This is probably the worst thing that came out of the Dust Devils War Bond, and it's definitely on the weaker end of grenades. So this one would be a whole lot better if it had better armor penetration on it. So this one, you throw it out and then it explodes pretty much like the cluster bombs, but it's not nearly as spectacular as cluster bombs. It's also really awkward if you want to try to throw this above something and air burst it, because that usually doesn't work. You have to get just the right angle to do it. This can close up bug tunnels though, so that is kind of nice, and it's not bad for clearing up small swarms of enemies. But this isn't really that great of a swarm killing grenade either. There are better ones like the incendiary grenade or the gas grenade that are just way better in that role and can also close up bug tunnels, so it doesn't even really fill that role. And against big enemies, they usually just shrug off the grenade anyway, so I'd rather have something for either killing crowds more efficiently with this or go with something that's just more specialized to deal with bigger enemies. So sadly, the pineapple grenade's not really that great. You also only get 3 of these, which makes it so it's very limiting in the amount of times that you can actually use this. It's not really that great for breaking up crowds. Moving on to the B tier grenades, pretty much from this point up, all these grenades are pretty good in one way or the other. So first up is the G31 Arc Grenade. This one's kind of a weird grenade too, but I do sometimes like this for the crowd control. So this one is like a bouncing electrical grenade that can zap multiple times. You throw this one out, it bounces up into the air, throws out lightning to everything nearby, hits them, usually stuns them, and then bounces to another area and does this. That is pretty nice. The electrical damage is decent from this, doing 100 damage, and it usually does stun big things like Hulks and Chargers, at least to some extent. It doesn't completely stun them like the Flashbang or something, but it is decent for the crowd control. Next up is the G3 Smoke Grenade. This one is interesting. This one is a completely utility option. You get 4 of these, you toss it out, it doesn't do any damage, meaning that you can't close up bug tunnels or anything with it. I do wish that was changed about this one grenade, but it does spray out a bunch of smoke, and the smoke does obscure enemies from actually being able to hit you. This is particularly strong on like bot missions. It can still be good on bug and squid missions too, especially if you like playing stealthy. Like this one's really good if you want to take the scout armor or maybe even the feet first armor from the Halo Warbond, and you're just trying to push objectives, and then you just throw smoke on the objective so that you can actually just wait out the objective timer and be able to do it. It also potentially makes it easier for when enemies are actively attacking a zone, and you can throw this on the objective itself, so if you need to run up there and punch in whatever codes you need to, then the smoke grenade can kind of keep you safe that way. It is a specialized grenade, but it can be pretty useful in those roles, and there's not really another grenade quite like this. Up next, we got the G50 Seeker Grenade. This one's kind of an interesting grenade, and when it was bugged, it was a little bit better just simply on like elimination missions. So this one is a very simple grenade. You throw it out, and if there's enemies nearby, it will actively try to hunt them down and blow them up. That's kind of cool. If the enemies are too close, then this one gets a little bit scary because sometimes it goes around the enemy, comes back around and hits the enemy, and then blows up on you. And that's not great, unless you're wearing like fortified armor, in which case then you can probably shrug this off. You can't really consistently close up bug tunnels or bot factors or illuminate ships thanks to the Seeker Grenade, since it has to have an enemy to target, and it won't target non-living things as like an actual target. So that does make it a little bit awkward in those roles. This one is definitely made more for crowd control. The next grenade is the G16 Impact Grenade. This one's pretty decent. I do like the Impact Grenade. It's very straightforward. You just toss the Impact Grenade, and whatever it hits, then it explodes. It does pretty decent damage, has heavy armor pen on it. You get 4 of these. This one comes in the free war bond. It's a pretty decent grenade overall. I find it a little bit awkward, especially on certain mission types if I want to be using it to actually close up stuff, because certain other grenades are just a lot easier to toss down a bug tunnel or to throw into a bot factory, where this one, sometimes you will hit some weird angles, or there will be like a twig in the way or something, and it will count as a hitbox and you'll blow yourself up, which is a little bit annoying. These ones can also be pretty decent for dealing with crowds and with big enemies too, since you can toss these at basically anything and hurt them. So impact nades are pretty good. Just personally not one of my favorites. I could totally understand if somebody wanted to bump this up to A tier though, because the impact nades are actually pretty fun to be using most of the time. Next grenade is the G12 High Explosive Grenade. This is a starting grenade, and this one's actually pretty decent. This one's got good damage per explosion, coming in at 800. It's also got heavy armor pen on it, which is great. It does have a longer fuse than some of the other explosives, but you can kind of cook this one off before you throw it. It can hurt just about anything. You get 4 of these, you can close up stuff with it. It's a very serviceable grenade and a pretty decent grenade in pretty much all aspects. There's nothing really like the high explosive will do poorly. It maybe just doesn't fill any other role. It's just a very generic grenade, but that's still pretty good. And sticking with the themes of a generic grenade, our very last in the B tier is the Frag Grenade, also coming in the free war bond. And this one's pretty cool too. This one you do get more of. You get 5 of these in total, or you could have up to 7 of them. You throw this one out, it's got a decent explosion on it, and then it also throws shrapnel out that can deal damage to enemies. This has medium armor pen on it. This one is also pretty decent. It's a pretty standard grenade. You throw it into crowds and it hurts them. It doesn't hurt big things as much as the high explosive grenade. It does have a shorter fuse time, so these do go off a lot quicker, which is kind of nice. It's kind of a toss-up between like the free grenades, between like the impact, the frags, and the high explosive as to which one is the best. I think it really depends on how you enjoy playing. If you like playing super aggressive, then maybe impacts might be the way to go. If you like playing a little bit more passive, then high explosives might be the way to go. And if you kind of like a middle ground, then the frags might be a good choice here. Or if you just want the most of them, then the frags can be decent. They're all decent grenades overall. Nothing way crazy, but nothing bad either. Now we move up to the A tier grenades, and these ones are all pretty good for one reason or another. So our very first one is the G142 Pyrotechnic. This one is kind of an interesting grenade because this one is basically a firework. You throw it out, it kind of jumps up like a bouncing Betty, and it shoots out fire all around it. The fire does have anti-tank armor on it, like most fire kind of does, and then it explodes, also leaving behind fire. This one can be pretty decent, especially if you manage to throw it like in between the legs of certain enemies. Like if you throw it in between the legs of a Charger or a Hulk, it can even be pretty decent on even bigger enemies than that. And the explosion does deal pretty well with most things. It's also pretty good on the city maps, simply because you can throw it down like an alleyway and it kind of chokes off that whole alleyway. Any small enemies running through there are probably going to die. And you do get 6 of these in total, so you can toss them out pretty regularly. They're a little bit more useful than potentially the other incendiary grenades, although I find those ones really useful for a very similar role too, so pyrotechnic is pretty decent. Up next we have the G23 stun grenades, the flashbangs. These ones have pretty much always been good. They're not as good as they used to be when they could flashbang basically everything, when you could flashbang a Titan, that was kind of crazy. But anything else, anything smaller than that, you can flashbang and kind of stun lock them there. These are really safe to be using around teammates and around yourself, because worst case scenario is if you do get flashbanged, you don't actually get like blinded or anything, you just move around slower. But everything else around you will also move around slower. And it also has a very short fuse time, and it has a fairly big AoE radius, so it's pretty good for stopping big enemies, particularly chargers, from like getting anywhere close to you, or hulks. And then you can either set up something to kill them quickly, whether that be a weapon that does it, or you could potentially just ignore them and then go around to the objective that you're trying to do. So flashbangs are pretty solid, especially if you don't want to be accidentally blowing yourself up or teammates up. Up next we have the incendiary impact grenades. These ones are also pretty good. They're similar to the pyrotechnic, but they go off instantly, as you would kind of expect. You throw these like the impact grenades and then they explode. They do less damage than the impact grenade, but they leave behind fire, and a pretty decent amount of fire. These are very specifically for crowd control. If you just want to clear up things, especially in like bug and squid missions, these ones can be pretty good. On bomb missions, incendiary impacts maybe not the best. You can still hurt things with them, but you're mostly going to be using this for the crowd control. Next up on the list is the regular incendiary grenades. If you wanted something with a little bit more of an explosion and can still close up things, well, I guess the impacts can too, but a little bit safer to close up things, maybe the regular incendiary grenade is a little bit better. I do like this one a little bit more than something like the frag grenade, simply because this does give more crowd control. It still has pretty much all the same use in terms of the explosion itself, but the fire that it leaves behind is pretty good. And then our very last A tier grenade goes to the dynamite sticks. Dynamite sticks are pretty good overall, since they do pretty good damage. They do some of the highest amounts of damage, very similar to like the HE grenade. This one doesn't have the same armor piercing that the HE grenade has, but this one does have a bigger explosion radius. It's also got a longer fuse though, and you can set the fuse to either 5, 15 seconds or 60 seconds. You usually never want to set it to 60 seconds, you usually want to keep it on the 5. The 5-second fuse, even with this one, does potentially make it more awkward, but I do kind of like this one more for the crowd control since it has a bigger explosion radius. So that is kind of nice, but you could make the argument that this one isn't even necessarily better than like the regular high explosive grenade, since it does do less damage and it has less armor piercing. So if you wanted something that was more built towards killing big stuff, that one might be a little bit better, whereas this one is more built for the crowd control. But still, I enjoyed the dynamite quite a bit. And that leaves us with our 2 S tier grenades, which I'm pretty sure you could guess which those 2 are, because they are pretty good. So first up, we have the G123 thermite grenade. This one is the premier anti-tank grenade. It does the most amount of damage out of any of the explosives. You do only get 3 of these. They're sticky nades that you can toss onto anything, and they just do a ton of damage. They burn for quite a while, which does damage over time, and then they explode, which deals a huge amount of damage. They also have very high anti-tank abilities on them. You can also stick these directly to like bot factories, and you can stick them directly to illuminate ships without even breaking the shield of the illuminate ship, and it will kill them. So that's pretty crazy. This can kill just about every enemy in the game. Like, you can stick it to a charger and it will likely kill it. Sometimes chargers can't shrug this off depending on where it got stuck to them. Titans, if you stick this to their face, it can potentially kill them. It will hurt them quite a bit if you do it. It's not going to kill like the Hive Lord, although it will hurt the Hive Lord, so throwing thermites on him isn't necessarily bad. And it can also hurt the Factory Strider in a similar way. One isn't going to do it, but if you stick a couple to it, it will kill it. So that is pretty nice. Like, thermite grenades are pretty much top tier, as you would kind of expect. They're really, really good, and they're generally my go-to grenade. Also up here in S tier, for the crowd control nade, that one goes to the G4 gas grenade. This one is also really insane. So this one does actually have demo force, which I wish they would give to some of the other grenades, like the smoke grenade, because this one can close up bug tunnels and bot factories, which makes it very, very useful. On top of that, though, it just sprays out a bunch of gas. The gas is fantastic for the crowd control, as it's pretty safe to be throwing this near yourself or teammates. You're likely not going to die from this, even if you end up dropping one at your feet because you get knocked down. Usually not that big of a deal. You can usually get out of the gas before it would kill you, even more so if you're wearing armor that resists gas. But any enemy in the gas is taking damage over time. The gas does linger for quite a while, and it spews out a decent amount of gas in an area too. Usually like one of these in the city streets covers enough of the area. If not, you just throw out a second one, or you can now pair it with like the harpoon gun. And anything affected by the gas is also getting confused and trying to attack other nearby anything, whether that be allies or enemies. So you can potentially get a whole bunch of crowd control from this. Like, this is fantastic against pretty much all of the enemies. Even against the bots, this one is really strong. It's particularly strong against the bugs and the squids since they have a lot more melee swarming enemies. So if you just toss that into the general group, you're probably fine. You can usually then just wander off and do the other objective and get a bunch of kills thanks to just the gas ticking away. So yeah, gas grenade is fantastic. Thermite is also fantastic. And again, like with this list, I feel like the top two are quite a bit above all the others. Like, the gas nade is the best crowd control grenade in the game. Like, it's better than all the other crowd control grenades. And the thermite is the best anti-tank grenade in the game. So if you want that, you can go with that one. So tell me your thoughts on the throwables. Which ones are your favorite? Which ones are your least favorite? Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so very much for watching it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.